So we're going to round over the tenon on the protruding tenon in the craftsman style. Very typical for that period. 100 years ago, 120 years ago. We're going to round this over with a number 4 smoothing plane, and that's all we need. So start with a chamfer. Now notice the angle of my plane is very much like 45 degrees. If I go this way, it's going to break on this outside edge. So rounding, come into this tenon. So I'll do the other one. This is so fast, I'm trying to slow it down for you. So 45 degrees here, angling your plane till it's about 3-4 mil wide, 5 mil wide. Then one here, and work it round. Then you go with your file here and get that continuous round over. Flip over, same again. And then on this top one, this is just a little bit different because we're dealing with a narrower surface. You may want to clamp your board, your rail, to the bench top. Now this goes very, very quickly. You start back here, maybe ½ an inch from the end. Keep your chisel low, and with the heel of your hand here, just pop it like that. Then move forward about 1/8 of an inch, pop it again. Pop it, pop it, pop it, and pop it. And that will do. Now we've got these little facets going around. Take your file, just a flat file, single cut flat file, and give you a very crisp, clean corner. That's the school bell going. You take this about ½ an inch from the end, pop it with the heel of your hand, lift up, keep moving forward with each cut. Like that. And file. That gives you your roundovers completed. So we got 1, 2, we've done our haunches, so we're ready to glue up the main frame. We just need to plane these surfaces now, get rid of pencil marks like this, take off the corners, we call them irises, take off the irises, just like this. And then we'll surface plane and we're ready to glue up. Sand it if you want to. And we're going to show you how to glue up the main frames. I want to make sure that the 2 aprons are dead to the same length. I've done my bench tops, they are absolutely the same length. So I can go now from my opposite apron, use the knife wheel again. Every time I make a cross grain cut, I always use the knife wheel. And so I'm going to transfer the lines. Gently with the first pass, very gently, and then I can go as heavily as I like after that. But that first one is a very light pass. That's purely to guide subsequent knife marks. Flip over. Now I've checked my boards also. I planed a straight edge along the top, made my face mark face edge, but I also made sure that my 2 sides are parallel one to the other. This just ensures that my ends are dead square. A long knife roll there. So no fuzzies here. Here's my glue lines, 3 points. Let's see where they break. That one broke, not on the glue line. And that one I can't break. No. So I've got good glue up there. Good to test it, make sure. Now I want to plane up the ends. Very simply. Following my knife wall all the time, never changing, keeping that knife wall pristine, not going below it. And now I'm going to break the corners. And now we're ready to form the housing dados with the wedges in to secure the apron to the leg frames. So the aprons and the bench top are now cut to length, exactly the same. I'm measuring 9 inches from one end because that's where I want my leg to start. So the dado actually goes on the inside of that. So 9 inches from one end. You can see I've got them together because I want to transfer my lines at the same time. You can use a pencil, but you might prefer to use a knife because it's so definitive. So make this first pass with the knife, same at the opposite end, and now I'm going to show you how to cut the housing dado. Okay, we've got our housing dados. I've already cut the first 3. I've got one more left to do, and I want to show you how to do it. You'll notice that this housing dado is tapered from top to bottom because I'm going to put a wedge on the inside of my leg because I want my bench to be transportable from time to time. So I've made a wedge on the inside that locks in place and keeps rigidity on the bench no matter how much shrinkage or expansion takes place. So we've got that knife mark that we had from joining the two together. So I'm pulling the knife wall here dead square on this side. Then I'm going to set this distance here is the thickness of my bench top plus 1/16 of an inch. So that makes the bench top protrude, the apron protrude past the bench top by 1/16, and I will use that to plane flush after we glue this together. So along this top I made another knife wall. Then I've got this one here which I made 4 3/4, and this one at the top is 5 1/4. So I have a taper of 1/2 inch. I join these two lines and I'm ready to cut my dado. This is a housing joint. The reason I call it a housing dado is because in America they would call a cross grain cut like this a dado, and in Britain they call it a housing, so I combine the two because it's very descriptive. It usually means across the grain for me. So alright, so I've got this. Now I just need my depth, and I'm going to set a gauge to 5/8 of an inch. So I've already set this one because I cut the others, but I could use my poor man's router because this needs to be set to 5/8 too. So you can actually use a router as a marking gauge if you want to. So there is a perfect marking gauge that never trips. So that will give you, or you can just simply use a regular marking gauge. So what we're going to do is we're going to establish that knife wall a little bit deeper. We're going to do it like this. Very simple. Across the grain like this, not trying to hit the wall, just working up to it. Just flick, 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 get rid of those pieces. And the same on this side, but not along the grain. We're not going to do this along the grain, we don't need to there. This is working with the nature of the wood. Just flick those out of the way, and then you can offer your chisel right up to that knife wall like this. Now you might want to sit on this because you want a little bit of weight to stop any flexing in that underboard. So hit, this will go in, this is going in about 3/16 of an inch in this pine, or this spruce. Softer woods, it's just the way it is. This is so fast. If you try doing this by machine, it's very difficult to cut this kind of a recess by machine. I don't know which machine you would set up to do it, apart from maybe a router, but then you'd have to make something to guide your router. Go onto this side, you may as well do your top pounding all at once. See, I'm feeling for that edge. I have a couple of knots in here, not too bad. The others all had knots in, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. And I've not sharpened this chisel. I only sharpened it once since I began this work, so these chisels generally stay sharp on this kind of a project. Now watch here, I can go with my bevel down here and just pound and just lever, and it will only fracture to the depth of my vertical cut. It won't fracture below that. So that's what makes this so fast. Very deliberate blows, get you exactly where you want to be, and if you just flick this, it'll go. Same on this one now. You can read the knots, you can see where the knots are going to trip you up a little bit. Just flick those out of the way. And now we've made room for the single side of our bevel to make a perpendicular chop. Again. So now I must be down about 1/2 inch, and I'm only going 5/8 of an inch. You can feel that knot, that's really the centre of the tree as well there. I've got the very core of the tree. I want these walls to be true, square and straight. I don't want any vibration in the legs when I get this frame together. So same again, back here. Try not to go too deep. I can read this. I'm about just shy of 1/2 inch deep now. Not there. And same again. This works just the same in oak or cherry, any of the hardwoods. The difference is negligible really. Okay, now along this wall here, I'm going to angle my chisel because I don't want to move that, so I angle my chisel slightly, and all I'm doing there is I want to keep the knife wall. If I went perpendicular, the single side of my bevel would drive it into that face. By going that way, I can just split out a little bit, and now I have a fairly substantial wall. I can chisel straight down without moving that knife wall. Alright, now we're going to take this middle section out. That's perfectly simple. We go with the bevel down and we split along here just to take out some of that waste. Got a little knot there. Read your grain. I'm still 1/8 of an inch above my depth yet.
So just remember to say you flip the board and then that's it.
I've got most of my dado chopped out. I've turned the board around because now I'm going to work better with a stabbing motion, and also I'm going to be using the router. So I've got a little bit more depth to go here. Take it down like this, but don't go too deep. Now I'm going to come in from this edge. I use the heel of my hand like this because it's more efficient, but if you are not used to that and your hands are soft, just go ahead and use the chisel hammer like this. I'm going right in at my line because I'm only 1/8 of an inch left to take out. See, this double-handed stabbing motion is very much a technique we use a lot, especially on this type of housing dado, but also we can use it on tenons too. Now obviously here, when I get halfway across, or a little over halfway, my chisels are not long enough. You can get something called a paring chisel that is super long, but they're not very practical and you don't use them very often. So what you can do here, when you get to this midsection, you can turn over and put your bevel down and take off some of the bulk that way. Now we need the poor man's router. This is adjustable. So I already gone down there, so I'm going to come here, give myself an entry, and then I work either side of that, work across. I've got a knotted area here, which is always going to cause a problem, no matter which tool you use. But my dado is fairly uniform depth now. Here, there's the knot again. But just nibble away at it. And then you can chisel out the last waste right in the corner. Bevel down, nice and clean. You don't want any area to be high. It's much better to have lows in here than highs, because if there's somewhere high it'll stop the seating of the whole joint. And if you were going to glue this, which I'm not because I want a transportable bench, I'm going to give this one extra tap just to adjust this one little bit deeper. all of my housing dados are completed, and I'm going to glue up my frames now. Now all my joints on my frames are tight, so we're ready to assemble this bench and finish off. It's been great.